super exciting. So we're finally into electronics. We built the droid, primered, painted, sanded, all that stuff, and now we're putting in some lights. So some of the first things I wanted to do was add lights for the visor. So the visor is like a 3D printed strip, a really thin piece of filament, white filament that goes into the visor faceplate. Right behind that is lights. So initially in the Droid Division booklet, I saw that he had done individual lights, right, like little LEDs. So I got some amber LEDs and I hooked them all up. And initially I tested and I hooked them all up the batteries just to test them out to see. I never worked with these LEDs like this before, right? So then I thought, oh, I could put them all in a strip all along the row. So I made like a custom little backing that went inside the visor plate behind the white lens, so it would broadcast the light forward. Sure, works great. But the problem is you have all these individual lights. If one of the lights goes out, that's a problem. You're going to have to fix it. These lights are also very low voltage, right? Like 2.5 to 3 volts a piece. And so it just was like a wiring nightmare. I had like this rainbow of wires up into the visor, and just any one of them that came loose would be a problem. It worked. It was good. It gave me what I wanted. It gave me light inside the visor, and the light was pretty bright because it was powered by these little LEDs. Then I eventually migrated to LED strip, and so right now I have a current amber strip that lives in there, 2 strips actually, to get the light, and they're 12 volt powered. So it's a whole strip of lights. You can cut them to whatever length you need, leave the wires at the end, run it down to a 12 volt battery. So I have these running inside the chest to my 12 volt connection, and then that's controlled by the backpack switch. So yeah, I got the lights hooked up in the head, and then the back of the head has a little port where there's also an amber light as well. This I use just a single, amber LED and put it in the back as well, and I run that wire down the back of the head. So yeah, it's really interesting playing with these lights, getting them powered, and I did a couple iterations of things before I finally discovered I should really use this, strip of lights. Much more hardy, right? You're not going to lose power on one light necessarily easily. Also easy to replace. Pull out a strip, put in a new one, you've got yourself light. Plus, the backpack has a blue light strip on it. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just order these in blue as well. So I get like a dozen in a bag. I just need to use 2 of them at a time. So I have 6 iterations of this if I need to change it up or they break or burn out or something, right? But yeah, they've been really robust and working. So yeah, they provide light for the visor, back of the head, and the backpack, and they all run down to a 12 volt battery I just picked up on Amazon. So you may see in some of the pictures I'm using a white rectangle piece. It's called a breadboard. Just some basic electronics 101. A breadboard is a really great prototyping device that you can use. So you plug your little wires in, and I guess you probably see these wires, the rainbow selection of wires. They have little pins on the end of them, and this is like solderless in a sense, right? I don't have to solder anything right now. If I want to test with a battery, a switch, some LEDs, I have everything I need with just a few wires and a breadboard. I could hook up the battery to the breadboard with the red and black, positive and negative, and then I could hook up a light to that as well in the same vein, a strip on the breadboard, and then you can power the light. Then you can put a switch in there. The switch, basic electronics here, interrupts the positive, for example, right? You put it as a go-between on the positive line, and you hit the switch, and now the power is connected, the power is disconnected from the light. So that's sort of the basics of how the lighting works. So I could turn it on and off in the Droid. So yeah, you may see down in some of the photos I have this yellow handled device. It looks like a crimper or something. It's actually a wire cutter. So you just slip the wires in here, you pull it down, these little teeth come down and strip the wire, and then you have a nice clean end of wire that's free of that plastic coating that comes on it. You may also see it in the pictures. I have this yellow little plate with 4 arms. This is called a third arm, and basically this thing sits on the table, and you can then clip your wires in, and it holds the wires in place in a certain area, and then you can work on it while it's held for you. I use this for soldering and all sorts of other things, but really handy to have. And yeah, so just talking about a few of the things that I used on the electronics journey. That's it. I'll leave it there. I just wanted to introduce you to the basics of electronics. I'll be talking about more electronics as we get into the chest. Same idea, single LEDs that go in the chest, and then those are driven by the Arduino. So the Arduino has some code that runs through a little cycle that makes the lights flash, keeps some lights steady, makes some lights flash, and that's all it is. It's a really simple setup. And then after that, we'll talk about wiring for like the servos. That's a much bigger deal. So servos are dealing with the RC battery, which is a higher voltage battery, higher power, and the servos, need to be, of course, custom fit into the joints and everything. That's a whole other design process and printing process as well as part of the Droid. Because remember, the Droid started with basic opposable limbs, right, that were held by furniture bolts into the joint, just like the elbow, for example. Well, then we got to take that bolt out. We got to put in a motor mount. And then how are we connecting these two pieces? How are we connecting the forearm piece to the upper bicep piece, as I call it? And then you need to run that wire. Right now the wires just run through in the armpit area into the torso, which is sort of true to how the N5 Sentry Droid has it in the Mandalorian. But yeah, we'll go into all that later on. Lots more to talk about. So thanks for joining. Take care. Got the Arduino hooked up. It's running 6 lights. Pretty sweet.